Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America, powered by Accuracy in Academia. This is episode, I think, 352. I'm your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Good morning, everybody.
All right. Well, weather-wise, I have this thing about I want it to be spring now.
So if you look up the records of the 10 oldest towns in in the U.S., right? Like 4 or 5 of them are in the beach area, Hampton Roads, in the Hampton Roads area, Norfolk, Hampton. There's one more of them, Chesapeake, maybe. They date back, into the 1600s. Very, very old towns. So what happened was the British came here and they found, British UK is known as Mud Island, right? So they came here and they found Virginia, and they're like, this place is perfect because it is what's going on now. It is a state of mud, right? And I don't know, Maryland's probably the same way, but the snow is finally abating. There's about, I'd say, 20% of it left. And now, so it's just mud and everything's wet, and it's rained a couple of times, so which helps with getting the snow out of the way, but it makes it muddy as all get out. So
Yeah,
you have to.
yeah.
Although I went out Sunday morning to go to mass, and my sidewalk, it was still we had to go early because it was Donut Sunday, so we have to go put the donuts out, right? And so it was like 6 in the morning, 6:15 in the morning. I go out there and the sidewalk was glazed over, and I didn't really see. Whap right down into the mud with my church clothes on. It was great. At that point, I'm late. I just got to get up and hope nobody notices. So
I'm coming as a chocolate glazed donut.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's good to see that it finally get off. I mean, the walk I complained about, that I couldn't get anything done for because it was a solid block of ice. It's now down to at most an inch in places, and other places it's now bare pavement. So I'm like, all right, the weather and the sun, the rain have done their job, and it'll be cleaned up in no time. I just kind of want to get past the melting phase, so maybe I can get my car washed somewhere and just wash this junk off the car. But it's too much of the melt off is still, you still get in the road. So that just to me it's just like it'll just get dirty again. So I'm kind of waiting for most of that to go away. So
Yeah,
it's
I'm
another
actually at
thing.
this point. What you need is rain to get all the salt, all that stuff down the drain.
Yeah, yeah. Again, wash it off my driveway too, because I used it on my driveway for this first time. It's like, hey, dang, this stuff is good, but who knows what the corrosive material is on this?
Yeah, it comes with a cost. That's for sure.
So, all right. Well, that's good though. I mean, I just kind of, like I said, I just kind of feel that we're getting there. I mean, we have pitchers and catchers reporting, and you can feel baseball in the air, and you're just like, we're a little over a month away from the first games of the season, spring training. All this kind of stuff is happening. It's just kind of like we're there. We're almost getting there. And as my buddy Dwight Patel, he's already ready. He already took a picture. I just saw him. He took a picture of himself at McDonald's yesterday because they have put the Shamrock Shake back on the menu for the next month. So he's all
Okay.
about that thing. I used to kind of like it, and it's like I realized like that thing is really way too sweet. Yeah, but you know what I want to try? I
Mm.
want to try I want to try the Girl Scout Thin Mint thing, Frosty at Wendy's. I don't want to support the Girl Scouts on the one hand, but most of the money's going to go to Wendy's anyway. But but everybody, all the online stuff just raves about Wendy's Frosty. They did last year. Apparently, they did. I think this is swirl. This year they've got fusion. You're going
Okay.
to pay for it, but you get the just they're upping their game on that for a chain that is actually having a lot of trouble competing against McDonald's and Burger King. I don't think Frosties are going to save them at this point. Anyway, so social commentary aside, uh,
All the burger places are in trouble though. McDonald's is the only one that's not in pretty bad shape. But Burger King is closed a bunch of units and all this kind of stuff. So, it's just that we don't eat like that anymore. It doesn't sell like it used to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have a desire to really eat at McDonald's too much. I mean, if I want to get a burger, frankly, I actually wind up going to like Checkers, which is nearby my house now. I
Yeah.
think I'll pay a little bit more maybe, but I think it tastes better. People like Five Guys. We've had a lot of those kind of more uppity or a little more, mid-scale, burger chains pop up. Some survive, some don't. But the Burger Fives, the BGRs, and lots of other local things that pop up, Smash Burger. Uh,
Yeah.
it's just different. It's not McDonald's, the same old thing. And
Right.
so,
I end up with McDonald's. I use it for breakfast. On the way to basketball Saturday mornings, get me one of those, sausage and cheese McMuffins, sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffins.
I had a chicken biscuits sandwich this morning from Chick-fil-A because they popped a free one into my app, and I'm like, okay, you got me. Bought some hash browns. I'm like, I'm good. But that's the other part of it is that the burger chains have lost a lot of business to the chicken chains, right?
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A has done major damage to them. Raising Cane's is just fast on their heels,
growing all over the country.
Yeah, so
Louisiana guy there. That's
Yeah, no, I mean we drove. Part of our reason that we were in the Columbia, Maryland area a few days ago was because it has a Raising Cane's there. We basically finished our mini shopping trip with Raising Cane's. So we kind of missed time. We thought, okay, we got there at about 11:15, just before the lunch rush. But it was Monday, so it was President's Day. What happened was that even though a lot of the laborers who come in there weren't working, I guess, and weren't coming in there starting around 11:30. There was a little youth soccer team in there, and it was noisy. They were cute, but it was like, oh boy, this is going to be, the noise level is like, woo, right off the charts. So anyway, that's it. That's good for them though. They're an amazing chain because they just do chicken. They refuse right now to do anything else. You can't even get a shake at Raising Cane's, right? You get soda, lemonade, chicken, and fries. You get coleslaw. I mean, things that go with the chicken, but in the combo boxes. But they stick to a very tight menu, and they're hugely successful. So
it's the same thing with Five Guys. It's a pretty short menu.
Yeah. All right, we got to keep moving along here. So it is National Pluto Day. Okay, that's one of the things that I picked this one out of all the days. I mean, it could have been. It's also a National Battery Day or something like that. But Pluto. I mean, I feel sorry for Pluto. Okay, I mean, so they were a planet. Now they're the dwarf planet. It's just they're unloved. Pluto's
an avalanche of disrespect.
That's right. I mean, look, you and I are old enough. We grew up with Pluto as a planet. It's like, how dare they reduce this to a dwarf planet? And future.
How do you know? What it should be? It's a long
sent
way
an expedition to Pluto to check. Yeah. So I feel Pluto has been wronged. Maybe President Trump can take up the cause of Pluto. I mean, he's taken up everything else.
There you go.
Why not, right? I want a planet named after me. Okay, we'll name Pluto. What the heck?
Yeah. It definitely won't be a planet. Democrats, a judge, some federal district judge will say, you cannot name Pluto for yourself.
It would be rather amusing, nevertheless.
That's the thing we ought to cover though at some point. Is like these district judges, right? Like there's one, like a district judge told Hegseth yesterday or the day before, I guess, that they cannot prosecute Mark Kelly in military courts or try to remove his rank and so forth. Like that has nothing to do with you, buddy. You don't get to tell the military how to handle its discipline. Right? They'll have to appeal it, and they'll tell the district judge he's ridiculous, and it'll go forward. No, the military will be able to punish Mark Kelly as he sees fit. But everything they do, no matter how obvious the outcome is going to be, these district judges give these completely incomprehensible and wrong rulings things they have no jurisdiction over, because they want to stick it to Trump. It's like, we cannot run this country on sticking it to Trump. Like, the Constitution's still the Constitution.
I do think the level of litigation has exploded.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the statistics, like the number of times a district judge has enjoined the Trump administration, it's like 7 times all the rest of them combined, right? I mean, they're just doing it to do it, to muck it up, right? So when you have judges saying, I'm going to do things for political purposes because I don't like guy X, right? You shouldn't be a judge, right? You don't get to be a judge. The point of having judges is we're trying to get people who are fair, who look at both sides and just decide the law. Well, there's, like this guy Boasberg on the DC circuit, like he obviously needs to go, right? He obviously needs to be impeached and moved out of office. He's obviously doing things, and there are paper records of him, conspiring with Democrats on how to thwart Trump, right? So, and also possibly conspiring with the Chief Justice, in which case he needs to be removed. So you don't get to, you don't sit around talking about how you're going to screw over Trump. That's not your job.
And I do think that part of the reason that we have this too is that, I mean, Trump is really throwing a lot of stuff out there. He's challenging the norms. He's pushing the envelope if he hasn't pushed past the envelope. Therefore, you get a reaction from the other side that, we need to stop this. And the way to try to stop it is you go to court and then try to see what you can get. Now, Republicans didn't really do anywhere near as much of that.
Right. They don't do as much. And when your claim is prima facie ridiculous, like a guy asking a federal district court judge to intervene in military justice, then the judge has a duty to say, that's not my jurisdiction. I'm not the guy to ask, right? And these guys won't do it because they can thwart Trump for 30 days or 50 days, whatever it takes to overturn it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect the Democrats to just sit there and just lie down and just take everything Trump is throwing out there and say Trump's going to issue this rule or that.
Yeah, I don't expect them to take everything either.
Yeah.
But I do expect them to stay in their lane, judge things you're allowed to judge, and that's not what's happening.
Well, that's a whole broader point about the whole court system. I mean, is that court system is clogged with cases that are ridiculous. I mean,
right.
we allow people to file under the most ridiculous claims, and they can grind on for a while, before being thrown out, and because of the appeals process. America gives people due process, and as a result of that, it can take years to resolve certain claims. And so if you can sue at the drop of a hat, okay, what's your risk? Generally relatively little if you've got some backing. If you can get an attorney to take a case on contingency, then you really have no risk venture. So there's enough public interest lawyers are more than happy to fight for the Democrats and stuff like that. So there's a war in the courts over what Trump does. And it by and large it is a way to kind of stick it to Trump and stop Trump. But the whole Trump train it's been very hard to derail that. The Democrats we've got a little over a year in, and they haven't had a whole lot of success, sans a few off-year election victories to say we've been able to make significant gains against Trump. And just it's still
Trump's as popular as he's ever been. The Democrats.
Yeah, his
polling number went up for the 4th straight day today. It's now back to 48.
Yeah, but he had dipped. He was kind of suffering.
He got down to 41. But
he was kind of
suffering. He made all that and more.
Yeah, I still think that the Republicans, they fall. They don't want to fight. They shouldn't be falling into the Democrats' affordability trap, because it is it's something Democrats want to get on there, but the Republicans with a good message can show how specious that charge is that the economy
inflation down to 2.3. Half the economic losses suffered under Biden have been regained. We added 180,000 private sector jobs and shed 35,000 more government jobs last month. So all good things, indices for the economy.
Yeah, we'll once again, I always take all these things as kind of looking to see how we do here, because I mean, you know, the future may or may not be as good, but the one thing for sure is that we've defied expectations, even though we're not super fast and growing. I mean, we're not going to grow at 6, 7, 8%. The fact that we're being able to avoid a recession despite all the claims, of a recession coming, but it is a tightrope between, the Fed policy and interest rates, trying to keep a cap on costs. I mean, the Wall Street Journal, I think they've been reporting is just like, another round of price increases by a lot of companies are occurring now. They've kind of hit their limit on tariff, swallowing how much they can increase on tariffs. So they are passing those things on. We will see we'll see what that results in. But I think I said this before. We have all-time high beef prices basically, but people are still eating beef. I mean, if people want it, part of the thing is that despite the fact that inflation has been kind of on the highish end of where they want it to be, it's not quite as low, but it's gradually getting lower, is that consumer demand is still pretty good.
Yeah.
And so that continues to prime the pump of the economy. And that's what kind of
salaries are up, taxes are down. So you have more money in your pocket.
That's what kind of vexes the Fed, is that it's not a normal thing. They're not seeing all the normal things go on there. So policy is always, they're trying to fine tune policy when things aren't going the way that they would have in the past. So I don't know what the future holds, but I think I'm relatively optimistic that we're still in pretty good shape. Inflation, it's there. I mean, there's going to be some type of inflation. So we've already had years of inflation built upon all these other things. So there are very few things that are going to reverse themselves in the way of costs of,
yeah,
you've got
other than fuel, things like that. Prices don't really go down, and you don't want a whole lot of going down. Although if you go to the grocery store, like I was in Walmart last week or so, and there was a lot of stuff in there marked down. Former price was this, new price is that. Now Walmart makes a point of doing that, and they make different deals with their vendors so they can get products cheaper and whatnot. But the price, the movement in prices now is down. Inflation dropped from 2.7 to 2.3 in 1 month, right? That's a lot. That's some momentum going in the right direction. Will it stay? Like you say, you don't really know if it'll stay, but generally these are momentum things. Once they start heading in a direction, they head in that direction some. So there's that. There's a lot more investment coming into the country. These facts. There's they keep talking about manufacturing jobs. That's not growing yet. Well, they're building plants all over the country, though. The White House put out a list. There's 6,000 manufacturing plants under construction in the U.S. right now, which seems to me that's like 120 a state, right? That's pretty. That's pretty good. I did that right?
Yeah.
50 times 120. Yeah. So I mean that's a lot of economic activity that doesn't show up on employment stats yet. You get construction guys are working and whatnot, but in engineering, but you don't have what they actually put in the manufacturing sector yet, because you have construction. So, but you have a lot more economic activity than you did. You have a lot more money. Depreciation is now immediate, basically. So, which encourages companies to refurbish, to buy new equipment and so forth, which further jacks up the economy. And, they keep telling us like, oh, the tariffs are dragging down this and that, because you're paying them, right? You Americans pay them. It's like, okay, well, if inflation is going down, how are we paying them? Right? I mean, if they're not causing prices to go up, then how can you say that we are paying them, right? Well, how do you make that claim? And they're like, well, American businesses are eating it, right? Well, okay, then it's a smart move, right? If somebody's eating it besides me, then it was a smart move.
Yeah, right? I mean, that's a whole tricky thing, because I mean, you can say that on the face of it, but and it is it is kind of by industry and by product. I mean, some
Right. There's
places,
some, there's absolutely, there's some products that are more affected than others. I don't buy bourbon, so I guess bourbon is kind of a thing. But like beef's in the same situation. I see it marked down all the time. Was this, now this. So, and I think, Trump went out and bought a bunch of beef from his buddy in Argentina, which also is, the beef producers here were like, oh, well, your prices are too high, right? Your prices will start coming down now, and they will.
Yeah, I mean, they need, if they want, if they want to compete more effectively, if Trump is going to import beef from Argentina, which is apparently very good beef, then they need these ranchers are going to have to put more cattle out, and try to bring some equilibrium to the whole system. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is the whole thing. Supply, demand, price constraints. One of the things that may affect inflation down the line is that there's immense pressure from the AI world on chips. The chip prices are going up. There's a capacity constraint. Companies are going to spend millions and millions of dollars on all of these things. We don't know really what the net effect is, but I mean, say you're a consumer.
I guess that's why Trump announced last week that they're going after the rare earths in Greenland, that they've got their deal set up. And that's the whole point of that is chips, right? That's the whole point of Greenland. Everybody thinks it's all this other stuff. It's about chips. It's about rare earth minerals for chips.
Yeah, the thing about when you've got supply constraint with chips is that you just can't produce more chips all of a sudden. There's capacity constraint, and you can't build a fab plant overnight. That takes a while. So this is a thing. So if you're buying a phone, a smartphone or something like that, there's chips in there. There's chips in your computers and everything.
Chips
like that.
In your car. So
right, there's chips. There's all kinds and there are different kinds of chips for different kinds of things, like cars and phones and whatnot. So those things,
so the Mississippi River goes by Baton Rouge, right? Across the river from Baton Rouge, West Baton Rouge Parish, there is a parking lot that has about 100,000 cars in it. And those cars came off boats and they can't run because they don't have chips. They're waiting on chips. When they get chips, they put the chips and they take the cars wherever they were going.
That's still a problem? That was a pandemic problem. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's a shortage of those chips. They build everything else in the car, and they ship the car to Baton Rouge, and they park it in this lot. And they go when they get their chips, they go put the chips in, and they have them some cars.
Holy
it's
cow!
Unbelievable. So there's a squeeze on it. The squeeze that's going to abate because that's why he was all in with Intel and all that kind of stuff. He's trying to build that manufacturing capacity. That's a strategic industry. If there ever was,
but I mean, my phone, which may be a retail might be $1,000 phone or whatever the cost is, and there's because of trade-in and rebate credit, I don't really pay that over time. But the thing is that Apple has to determine, on the chip price, how much of the increase do they pass along to the consumer versus how much do they eat to keep the price from getting out of control. What is the consumer willing to pay? What is the most they're willing to pay for the next generation of phones or other gear that Apple, Samsung has the same issue, because if you think about it, I mean, weren't these phones when they first started out, $400 or $500 maybe, and then they basically gave it to you because you had to go under contract for like 2 years, and then just kind of renewed it, and before they kind of changed the methodology where you'd kind of buy the phone, or if you trade one in, then you have to be under like a 2 or 3 year contract so that you can. They spread your credit out over that time while they charge you for the phone over that period of time. But yeah, because the retail price of the phones has gone up. I think the top end of the iPhone is $11.99, maybe $12.99. So, but people don't stop buying them.
Right.
And they,
I don't think very many people actually pay $12.99 for one of those phones.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really pays full price. I mean, I would have a hard time paying full price, but it's something that you kind of, after a few years, you kind of have, there's a desire usually to try to keep up with the next and get another generation, because, the phones are, the security updates and stuff for these things go on for, 5 to 7 years. And you don't want to, then you really don't want a phone that's not receiving updates. That's probably not the best thing in the world to have. But once again, more commentary. All right. Anderson Cooper is leaving 60 Minutes. The liberals are all just having a conniption fit over this, but big deal.
Well, I mean, for one thing, like the liberals, the conniption they're having is they're saying, he's got to get away from Barry Weiss because she's not going to let him run straight news stories. Barry Weiss is making them do their work, right? Like the story about the prison in El Salvador. They asked 3 different government agencies for comments on the story they were working on and the angle they were working on. All 3 of them provided pretty comprehensive answers. And then they did the segment as if they'd never gotten that commentary, right? And then they said they refused to talk to us. Well, no, they didn't refuse to talk to you. 3 different agencies gave you exactly what you asked for. Okay, so, what are you talking about, right? So, now you're to a situation where, everything that she does, everything that happens, that's a integrity, journalism integrity measure. So every time, journalism integrity is imposed on the left, right, they freak out and scream. Why is that? That's kind of weird, isn't it? Like they never would just say, okay, we'll here's our goods. Here's how we prove our story. Here's the research, right? Why don't they ever do that? They don't. They scream and curse and get mad and stomp, right? So it's because they don't have the facts on their side. So I have not heard Anderson Cooper say why he's leaving. I haven't heard him say anything about Barry Weiss. Have you?
No. I mean, the only thing I saw was just basically is that, he was offered a contract renewal and he walked away, in essence. And also reports that, Barry Weiss was considering him for the CBS Evening News anchor slot or something, so, I mean
Anderson Cooper, he's an heir to the Vanderbilt fortune.
Right.
And so he doesn't need any money, and he's made a ton of money in his career of his own. Right. And he's a talented guy. So, he gets to make these choices based on what he feels like doing. And maybe he just doesn't feel like doing that anymore. Right. If that's true, I mean, maybe it's exactly what the left says. And he's mad about Barry Weiss and he's mad about journalistic accountability being brought to that network. But I'd be surprised if that's what it is, because, he seems to be a guy who's on the left. He looks at everything from the leftist angle. But when things get too unfair and out of whack, he does speak up. Right. He has spoken up before. He's been on surprisingly good every once in a while on some issues.
Yeah. Well, I suspect that unless he wants to join another network again, that he will just he'll take the route that so many journalists have taken, which is basically, maybe set up a Substack, go independent with a video podcast, do his own independent, quote independent journalism, and then try to build a following. As you said, I mean, he doesn't need the money. He could do all that for free, but he could. I think that if he charged, something, $50 to $80, $100 a year for access to his content, I think there are plenty of people who would pay for it. He's built a long career, and there are plenty of people who like Anderson Cooper. So,
Yeah.
he hasn't sabotaged his career per se. But he and Barry Weiss obviously didn't see eye to eye. And this is, Barry Weiss has had a profound effect on CBS News. It's like, the left wingers are, they're struggling, and they're, under this new direction. And, I mean, she was willing to keep him. Right. I mean, it's not like she fired him. She was willing to keep him, and he walked away. Unlike, Stephen Colbert, who's, ranting and railing and all this kind of stuff like that, it'll be good riddance when he goes.
he's not a serious person. That's one thing that's come out of this is like his takes on these issues are cartoonishly bad, and he doesn't really have a leg to stand on. And I think he's kind of realized that he's in over his head. The argument he's trying to make is he's not really capable of making. So I guess he gets out in May. He's done in May. His show is canceled, and I think most of the people at CBS cannot wait. When I worked for Tom Davis, he came and did one of those Better Know a District deals with Tom Davis, and I was the press guy, right? So I had to like make sure he had everything he needed. So they do the interview. Tom leaves. I have to sit there for an hour and a half while Stephen Colbert is doing his smirks for the camera. He's like, right, and they're filming this stuff for an hour and a half to get the smirks just right. Right. So, I mean, that's the level of intellect you're dealing with there. An hour and a half to get your smirks right.
All right. I want you to tell me about my governor, Wes Moore.
I don't
know. And
no one does.
And that he is a person of honor and integrity, despite all these things coming out of the Free Beacon.
Yeah. I mean, when the campaign was going on, there was some noise about this. I think the Republicans, I think you ask your buddies up there, I think some of them knew about this. And they tried to raise it, but it's Maryland. No one cares what anybody but the Democrats says anyway, right? And they here's an example of he's like Buttigieg, right? They look like stars. Democrats, remember, they're not interested in what is, they're interested in what it looks like, right? So they look like stars. They look like these magnificent guys. You could walk out there and they give their Ken doll speech. It's the same thing with Obama, right? He looked like a star. He looked like he'd be really good at this. And then he gets to doing it. And Obama is basically going to be remembered as the first black president and pretty much nothing else, right? And he tried some healthcare thing that didn't work. 50 years from now, that's what he'll be, because he wasn't really good. He didn't really have any ideas of how to run the country. And it's the same thing with Wes Moore. He looks really good, right? He's a military guy, this, that, the other. And so he kind of goes against brand for them. He's not a Tim Walz or a Jerry Nadler who looks like a liberal dude, right? A leftist dude. And you're just like, oh, okay. He looks like he could be on either side, but he was so smart. He chose the left, right? And that's always what they're looking for, is they want to make it look like it was smart to do what they did when it's not. It's completely emotion based, right? So they get this guy, and of course he knows what side's bread's buttered on. You're not going to win a whole lot of elections as a Republican in Maryland, and even fewer if they get their little redistricting thing through. So he was always looking over the shoulder of, the meme where the guy's walking along with his girlfriend and he's looking back at the other girl and they put different stuff on it, right? He was always looking back at president. I'm sitting here holding hands with governor, but I'm interested in president. So, and now that's gone because like he'll never get past that. That's a gatekeeper mistake.
Yeah, but like on these charges, I mean, what was it? Studying the things at Oxford and stuff like that. Does he not have something in his hand, proof that can say, no, it's like, the Free Beacon was wrong, and here's proof that I attended and graduated and whatever, all this kind of stuff. Instead, it seems that, he deflects and says, just blames it all on the right wing, machine, kind of a thing like that.
Right. Because the facts aren't on your side. Make noise, right? That's right. That's a real failure of leadership, though. Those lies are unnecessary. He looks pretty impressive without all that.
So, I mean, he was interviewed by Nora O'Donnell. Should she have pushed back on that harder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Didn't she just let him go? I mean, it's like, I'm watching this thing. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, that's one thing. It's like, I've always thought about this is the leftists, by coddling these people, that you actually hurt them, because when they run across questions they can't answer, they have no practice answering them, right? No one's ever brought that up to them before, and they're not ready. It's like, I guess AOC, she went over to the Munich security conference, And like she worked on this for 9 months. Like, I'm going to be ready for that conference, and I'm going to show them that I got, foreign policy bona fides, and I know all these, foreign policy things, right? And they're like, what about Taiwan? That's a China, and we're hoping it doesn't come to that or something. Just embarrassingly bad answers. I mean, there's no, how can they look at her and take her seriously as a presidential candidate now? If I was running against her, I'd just play that tape. This is her actually trying to talk about foreign policy to world leaders. Is this what you want?
Well, I mean, the thing about that, since we're going to segue into that next, item, is just that, the Democrats keep, they've kept tossing her name about as a potential future candidate, right, for president or whatever. I mean, that's as from the progressive left and all this kind of stuff. But she showed in Munich that she had no understanding of things, despite the preparation that she made. As she said, Taiwan, Venezuela, below the equator, these kinds of things is like, you need to understand actually where the countries are, so you can actually answer them, reasonably well.
Think about the Cowboys. Did you see something? Someone said about was it Rubio or somebody said the Cowboys came from Spain. Just, well, the Mexicans like to have a word about that. It's like, no, the reason the Mexicans do it is because the Spanish brought the horses. Right, you idiot, right? As we all know, right? And she like, being, arrogant like that really hurt her there, because it's like she arrogantly said something really stupid.
Yeah, and the thing too is just that, I mean, it's one thing when the Republicans are criticizing her for this, right? But Democrats, there are Democrats, strategists, and others that are like, "Oh, this was not good. This is
right.
This is not a good look," and you can't hide from it. It's out there. It's forever on the internet, right? I mean, it's something that's out there, and that can be used over and over and over again to remind people that she has, you've got a safe seat in New York at this point. Just stay there.
That's right.
That's about all you're going to be able to hope for.
It's a pretty good platform for you. Unlikely to lose it. Just keep going.
Yeah, she can make a lot of noise right from there. She doesn't really need anything else at this stage. It seems so,
Right.
but trying to rise above what her ability to do so, that was a big mistake. I don't know whose idea that was to put her onto that, send her to Munich for that whole thing, but that was just not a good idea.
I mean, they think she's really talented. It's really, the perception difference is really wild on this one.
It's a little bit different. I mean, I was pretty impressed overall with Marco Rubio, though, because I mean, I thought he gave a really good speech, and he just presented well, and he sounded good, and I'm just like, yeah, I mean, that's, I still think
he talked about the right thing. It's like, the future has got to be, Europe takes care of Europe, America takes care of America, and there's really a threat to Europe. The two of us should be able to ward it off without ever having to go to war, which is largely what happens now, right? But he's throwing down the gauntlet to Europe. And then when he got done, it's like, you can either stand up for yourself, or you can be overtaken by people from, the South, and they'll run your countries, and you won't like how they do it. And, the time to stand up is now. And when he was done, stand and go. So, to me, that's the really interesting thing. It's like he went into the belly of the beast, and he told them, put his finger in their chest and said, this is what you need to do. And they gave him that's really the only thing she knows. That's true. They gave him a standing ovation for telling them the truth. You don't get that a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, for whatever it's worth, I mean, I think, you could say that Rubio's stock for 2028 presidential, took just rose a great deal. But I mean, he still has J.D. Vance in front of him, so that'll be very hard to get around. But maybe on the ticket, I don't know.
There's something they said something. I didn't see what it was, but they're trying to deal with that question now. It's like they'll be on the ticket in some order, I believe, is the correct answer.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Marco Rubio, I think, has done a very good job. one of the best cabinet secretaries, we have
Yeah,
by
best
far.
Secretary of State in a long, long
Yeah,
time.
I mean, yeah, and my wife, she raves over Scott Bessent.
I love Scott Bessent too.
Yeah, I mean, she has that moral quandary about the fact that he's gay, but she gets past that and she says like he's so good, he's
Yeah,
he you know, and I think people like Bessent and Rubio
Kevin
kind of help.
Hassett, the economic advisor, is very, very good.
Yeah, I think that people like that. Trump has got a better group of people in his cabinet this time than the first time around, and they help keep him in check to the degree they can. Trump is always going to be Trump, but at least they've got these guys there that you can say, here are a few people who actually stay the course. They sound they sound kind of normal, and they're really good on the policy issues, and we have and I think if for stock market traders, they look at a guy like Scott Bessent, and he keeps them from getting too unnerved about anything that Trump says, uh, you know,
Right.
because and stuff like that, and foreign policy, still Rubio still helps keep them in check, or at least kind of calms their nerves that they don't Rubio's not a direct Trump sycophant in that sense. So
Right.
as a result of that, we're able to kind of steer through all these things, despite Trump doing whatever he wants to do at midnight or 2 a.m. on True Social. So he's put together a pretty good cabinet, and actually I thought it's one of the better cabinets in recent memory. They've stuck together. We're not seeing any immediate scandals. Nobody's leaving early yet and stuff
Right.
like that. So there's some controversy floating around Christy Nome, but it's that'll
People who
probably
oppose the policies,
yeah, that'll probably pass,
Yeah.
as time goes along anyway. So, this, um, yeah. So, which actually leads us into the DHS funding. So, ICE has got their funding because that's kind of a separate deal. Congress has given them a bunch of money, but other parts of DHS are not funded. Um, you know, my personal, only thing there is just hope that TSA doesn't get too bogged down. I have got a plane trip on March 11th, and this better be fixed.
Well, I hope TSA is a complete disaster between now and then, because I want the urgency on them to give
Well,
in.
yeah, look, I have no love lost for TSA, except the fact is that I have to go through TSA to get on a plane, and I don't want my experience to be getting so screwed up that I can't get onto the plane in time or whatever. That I got to build in so much extra time that is just ridiculous mess. Now, I paid for pre-check and all the that kind of stuff, so I get the faster lane theoretically. So hopefully that helps, because I'm already known to the government in that sense. But I just even that can get bogged down because it's still on the employees. Until you get to say an AI driven system where it checks you, it verifies you at all access points, and they're testing things kind of
Yeah.
like that, where there's a lot of touchless. There's several testing points of where there's kind of touchless TSA. So I don't think they use as many agents. You go through this process, and they scan you. They don't know who you are, and you don't have to really interact with agents. Then I think that would help. That would help a lot, right? People, humans are humans, and there is a natural disdain for a lot of these TSA people. So, a lot of them are not extremely competent, and people get very agitated when they travel. They don't like all the rules, which have been, there's we don't need the same level of rules we did 25 years ago, right? We're
Right.
air travel is much safer, but we still have a lot of those rules in effect, and so it creates this kind of still slow process of getting through TSA. People with little kids, other people in rush, they get agitated. Sometimes they lose their temper at TSA, and then that creates a whole nother fracas and all these other kinds of things. People lose their temper on airplanes. It's like, everybody needs to take a little bit of a chill pill or whatever, but nevertheless, TSA is not the way, it's not the way to handle security. I mean, it's just
right.
it's not a good
Something's got to
system.
happen. And the problem is we don't really know like which thread you pull and the whole thing comes apart.
Right.
Right. What safeguard? Hey, we don't need all these safeguards. Okay, which one leaves us vulnerable? Right. If we take it away. So
Yeah.
you don't know. They say wanted to put the shoes back on. I guess you don't have to do your shoes anymore. That seems like it should be pretty detectable. We can do that, handle that one with technology. But I mean, there's still people out there who want to kill us. I still think we need to be kind of careful about the plane. So I don't know, because you can use them as weapons, as we saw in 9/11.
Yeah, I mean, I would think there's enough technology or potential technology you can place in the airports. It's like, not only even if somebody bad or somebody with bad intentions gets by TSA, that with cameras and technology, you can you can watch people in waiting areas and look for tells, suspicious behavior, and maybe pick them up for a second, go round and just double check things and stuff like that. I mean, as much stuff as TSA, gets, confiscates at the checkpoints, there's still a lot of stuff that gets through,
Yeah.
And so you still have a little bit of a risk, but yeah, something we still need a better system. Yeah, but as you said, what string do you pull before the whole thing falls apart? I don't know what it is at this point. I did want to talk a little bit briefly about Jesse Jackson before we kind of wrap everything up today. So, lots of plaudits, lots of, Jesse Jackson, great civil rights guy, push Rainbow Coalition, all the things that he did and all this stuff like that. But I, ran for president a couple times, but I don't hear, of course, I don't really hear the left wing activism, all the other stuff that he did, which was just ridiculous.
Well, like I've dealt, you have to, with a bunch of people from the other side over the years, right? You have to. And I dealt with Jesse Jackson on 2 or 3 different things. And so I know him a little, right? If one thing, you would enjoy a sports conversation with him, right? He was knowledgeable about all the sports, kept up with football, basketball, baseball, who was doing what, like in some detail, right? He of all those people that you deal with on the other side, he was one of the more reasonable, more accommodating, more congenial people on the left, right? He had his political objectives aren't the same as mine, and they never were going to be. But he would listen and talk, and he knew people on the other side. And he was also probably the first of the really industrial strength political grifters, right? The modern age political grifters, like Rainbow Coalition, basically was a fundraising mechanism, right? That served mainly him, but he did push a lot of out the door for the charitable intentions of the donors, but he also ended up quite wealthy from it. So, there's good and bad to all people. I say when you put him up against all the people in the world, there's certainly a lot to find wrong. If you put him up against the people in leadership in the Democrat Party, he stacks up pretty well. He's somebody that we could talk to a little bit. So, an RIP to a guy who accomplished a lot, in his life, and was not the worst guy. Like I had to deal with John Lewis, and that they're all reverent about John Lewis. He was a complete jerk, right? Complete arrogant jerk. And, so like, I wouldn't say the same thing about him, but but Jesse, I would.
How about Al Sharpton?
I don't know Al Sharpton, but he does not seem like the kind of guy I'd get along with.
Yeah. I mean, I think my perception would be is that I would probably like Jesse Jackson much more than I would like Al Sharpton.
Yeah. Jesse Jackson, more for his people, less demagoguery.
Yeah. All right. We'll continue on here. Trump marked the 5th year anniversary of Rush Limbaugh's death with a nice little tribute video, which is good. These are things that start to fade from my memory. I don't know about you, but it's kind of like Andrew Breitbart, who's another. He died, I think, in March, and
I know he died like March the 1st, I believe. The reason I know that is my brother died the next day. I was
So yeah,
driving
and I
down
don't
trying
even
to see
remember
my brother
how many. I
before he
don't even
died.
remember how many years ago he, he
2012.
died. But no, so it was 2012 for Breitbart.
Yeah.
It was like, so here, I used to see, things like with Breitbart, conservatives would always post a lot on social media about that. But I think as time has gone along, I see less remembrances about that. The same thing is for Rush. It's only been 5 years, but the same thing is these things we unfortunately tend to fade from memory. But to me, Rush, I mean, I do think about him from time to time because in the political atmosphere that we have been in for the last, really ever since he died, I just wish we had his voice.
Yeah, he'd have
Because
been a hoot. He
yeah,
really
I think
would.
his voice would have been extremely important, at this point in time. And if you want to even say to lower the room temperature for anything, Rush could have done that.
Yeah, that's
He
right.
would explain things, and he would, all that stuff about ICE that people got all angry about, even conservatives who kind of run off the rest. I think Rush would have explained that in a way where conservatives would have been calm and gotten in line.
Right.
And
Our explainers, they've taken out our explainers. Rush,
yeah,
Charlie Kirk was an explainer, right?
yeah,
This is why we think what we think. So yeah, but I'm getting ready to
yeah.
go
I
to
mean,
mass,
yeah,
and
yeah. I
it's
mean,
Ash
yeah,
Wednesday, right? And
yeah.
so when they give you when they give you the ashes, they say, "From dust you came, and to dust you shall return." And that's the case. Once when you die, like your legacy is in the people you worked with, because the life moves on. Someone takes your place, and they keep going right on.
That's right, right. And so your legacy will be whatever you leave really to your immediate family in most cases. There are people who leave wealthy people who leave larger legacies, but you and I are more average Joes, and it's really our family, that are that's
Our families, and like you work with these kids and the young people in your church. I work with the basketball people. That's our legacy. Those are
yeah.
their little contributions. The world doesn't know about them or care about them, but that is 20 years after we're dead. Those people will be treating someone better because of us, hopefully.
Yeah, or what we've done is that we put together money and we've set up a scholarship, in Spencer's name at BYU that'll take
Yeah.
effect, sometime this year, maybe. I don't know exactly the timing of it, but basically it's in perpetuity, so that students in the future will get small scholarship stipends forever.
Yeah.
Basically, as long as the school's around, because basically once the money's there, it will grow. They take they take a small portion of that, awarded to the student, but it continues to grow over time. We did that for my father 21 years ago, and it's, I don't know how many students has been. They don't award this to that many students, I don't think. But I know that the fund has grown. I'm like, yeah, this is at the rate they dole out the money. This thing will never run out of money, So, but those are the legacies. That's, my father would hate that legacy in that sense, but I think he deserved it. Journalism students can benefit by that.
That's right.
That kind of a thing. All right, quickly, curling controversy at the Olympics. So curling is really a kind of a gentlemanly sport. They basically police and referee themselves, and they had this big controversy between, was it Sweden and Canada, and so then the curling federation said they were going to put in judges or watch them more, and then apparently the violations exploded, and it's just kind of a mess. And I think curling is kind of cool to watch.
Yeah, we've been watching it. They're sweeping that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Olympics for you. I mean, anytime there's something valuable that people want to win, that's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it should have been one of the least controversial sports at the Olympics, the way it did, and yet now I don't know if the tensions are heightened or whatever, but yeah, it's like, oh, but you did this with the brush, or your stone, and all this stuff. I'm like, are you kidding me? I was like, okay, your gentleman's rules apparently went out the window here.
Yeah, I barely know how the sport works. I definitely wouldn't know how to cheat.
What I do think is interesting is that USA hockey is playing Canada women's hockey, right? They're going to play for the gold. I mean, considering all the tensions, this is good. This is going to be quite a game. Just
rough. Women, they're not supposed to check.
Yeah,
so it might be some violations of that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Time out there.
there may be some bad blood that may really, just kind of come to other things there. We'll see. That would be an interesting game to watch, just to see how that's played out. I saw this clip about Whoopi in The View and the Epstein file. So she's mentioned in there. It has to do about, I guess, a G2 and something like this. And the clip I saw, was how The View was treating the Epstein files before these last release all the files, blah blah blah, Trump and all this kind of stuff. This comes out, and then Whoopi's trying to deflect now, and she's like, "Okay, you can put that up. You can see my name." She says, "I had nothing to do with Epstein, blah, so,
blah blah blah." But you're starting to see, like, here's the problem with just demanding all this stuff being thrown out, right? Because a lot of, I totally believe her. I don't think she was out trafficking kids, right? She had whatever legal dealing with him she had. Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, like, his name's in the file. He went to the island. Did you know he went to the island, Don? He went with his whole family and they had lunch for 2 hours and then left with his whole family, his wife and his kids, all of them. So do you think they went in the back room wherever Epstein did his stuff with the little girls? No, I do not think that. Right? They didn't. So, but you have all these names. Trump's been there 28 million times or whatever. That's because once they made an Epstein file, they're like, we're just putting everything about Trump in this file, right? Because people accuse Trump. So okay, we're not going to be able to say that there was something left out. So we just dump it all in there. And none of it is verified, right? In fact, Epstein says Trump didn't do it. The victims say Trump didn't do it. The victims' families, the victims' attorneys, Obama DOJ, Biden DOJ, both Trump DOJs, WAPO, New York Times, CNN, AP, all say, ABC, just the other day, ABC, all say, hey, we've looked at all this. Trump did not do this, right? But no one listens to that. That goes right past their ears. Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, well, the liberals have spent all this time, trying to get Trump through the Epstein files. So it's a big deal. The DOJ has got to release all these files because we've got to really get down to the bottom of this and all this. So they have created that whole sense of that, the fact that he's in there means that he's guilty. Okay. So you basically have set a bar to me of like, if you're in the files, you're guilty. And then you find, the Clintons. Okay. Problem. Okay, yeah. Whoopi Goldberg, an innocent kind of a thing involving a Gulfstream airplane, not a big deal. But it's like, you spent time on the air talking about Donald Trump being mentioned. I think they claimed he'd been mentioned like 30,000 times in the files or whatever. And like, now you're backing off and you're saying, well, look, I had nothing to do with it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's just a mention. Right?
Yeah, it's just a mention.
Just mention me. It doesn't mean I did the thing.
Right. But didn't you say that Trump was mentioned, so he's actually automatically guilty? Yeah. So
right. Exactly. They're starting to get a little taste of their own medicine.
Yeah. So this is you better watch out what you wish for.
That's right.
And all of this. All right. And then
I got to go to church. I do got to get out. All right. Enough of this sinning.
All right, we're done. I think we'll wrap this up. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America. And we'll see you again next week.